Okay, lecture 6.2. Now, lots and lots of ideas are covered in this course about how to practice well, how to breathe well, how to study well, how to do all this kind of stuff. And often when we learn new skills, we learn them within the realms of what we've been learning. So you're doing a yoga course, so all of these skills you're applying to your yoga practice, I hope. If you're not applying it to your yoga practice, then something's not going right. What would be amazing though, because imagine this is your yoga, this is your life, this t-shirt is your life, this is your yoga practice. And this bit's getting better. It's feeling better, it's feeling safer, it's feeling stronger, and that's starting to radiate out. Other parts of your life are also turning orange and red, are also feeling better and stronger and whatever. But what if you took these lessons and you spread them out over your whole life? What if you took the mindfulness practices, the mindfulness ideas of trying to get things like right in the pocket of challenge, not too boring, not too overstimulating, and then being in the present moment and ridding yourself of the unnecessary chatter in the mind? What if you did that when washing the dishes? What if you did that when walking to work, or cycling to work, or driving to work, or not going to work, or staying home? What if you started to modify and adjust your behavior and your reactions through the concepts and the things that we'd learn, and hopefully through interacting through your anatomy to your physiology and your psychology in a more positive way, that you could be calmer and you could therefore interact with even other people better. It's interesting. Yoga is a very, to use a word, selfish pursuit, isn't it? In yoga, we're working on ourselves through time spent with ourselves for the benefit of ourselves, aren't we? What's interesting though is for many yoga practitioners, serious yoga practitioners, who, especially people who start to delve into the philosophy and this kind of stuff, they tend to become easier people to be around. And that's because although it is a selfish pursuit, selfish, let's say in a good way, you're really looking after yourself, the effects of that can then radiate out into the world in a positive way. What I mean by that is, although yoga is inherently about the self, we humans are incredibly social animals. I mean, think about social media. Why is social media so effective at taking our attention? Why is it so addictive? Why is it so important for all of us, especially those of us who've been stuck in a little bit of lockdown recently? It's because we're social beings. You know, we actually don't value ourselves in an isolated box. We think about ourselves as part of a unit, a family unit, a country unit, a subculture unit, I'm a yoga person, you know, whatever it is. And then we kind of rank ourselves in reference to others. So we don't look at our lives and go, you know, let's say you're making minimum wage in Australia, you're making like $40,000 in Australia. You don't think, oh wow, I've got so much money. You look around, don't you, as a social animal, and you go, oh, that person's got more, almost everyone's got more, therefore I don't have a lot. Because we're social. If you just had what you had, it would be a completely different thing. Why am I going on about us being social beings? Well, because hopefully the lessons that you've learned and the feelings that you are cultivating inside of hopefully a bit more calmness, a bit more present moment awareness, a bit more self-awareness as you've been working towards self-realization, hopefully those elements can transfer onto your relationships. Now, when we say relationships, in English, that often means your girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, whatever, wife, husband. But I'm more in reference to all of your relationships, your relationship with your parents, your relationship maybe with your kids, with your friends, with your family, with your pets, with everything. You have a relationship with all of these beings, right? And if those relationships have potential to improve, and when I say improve, I mean the communication between you and them improves, therefore the understanding of you and them improves, therefore the dualism of they are them and I am me and we're separate can be slightly dissolved if you can realize that you're quite similar or whatever it is. If you can hear each other a bit better, if you can see each other a bit better, whatever terminology you want to use, then that's not only going to improve yourself, but that is now going to improve your situation. Because imagine if you'd done all this work on yourself, all this yoga stuff, all this study, all this whatever, and you just kept it for yourself. You didn't really worry about the external. I mean, the external could be very close, like your partner, for example. And that relationship actually suffered because you were changing. And this is something that we hear about far too often in the yoga community, is when someone makes the transition from their old way of thinking to a newer way of thinking, like taking into consideration this philosophy and these concepts and these ideas, often some of their relationships suffer. And I would argue they suffer not because the information is bad, not because the self-development is bad, but because the integration hasn't been conscious. The integration of that information and concepts and ideas into their relationships hasn't happened. And many people actually get frustrated rather than inspired by this when it comes to relationships. What I mean by that is they learn all these new things, they start to feel better in themselves, they start to look at the world a little bit differently, and then they look back at the other people in their life and they go, no, you represent my old life. You don't see the world like I see it. I've moved on and you've stayed still. And that can create kind of frustration. And this is something we often hear about in yoga teacher trainings, where relationships outside of yoga teacher trainings can suffer. And this is more in reference to when we do a yoga teacher training over a period of time in a city where people keep going back home. So they come to yoga teacher training, they feel really good, they're learning all this stuff, they're like their best selves, blah, 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 they're surrounded by like-minded people, etc., etc. They go home, they're like, oh no, it's just the same as it was 2 weeks ago, but I'm different now. And that can create some periods of tension. What's best though is when people go back home, from those moments, or even from this course, you turn the computer off, the screen off, whatever, and you go back to your relationships, and you notice things that you either didn't notice before, or that frustrate you now, or that have always frustrated you, whatever. And instead of thinking the superiority complex, the selfish complex of like, I'm better than this now, you rather think, because I am working on myself, because I am a better person now, I'm going to deal with this in a better way. I'm going to be more kind, more loving, more thoughtful. I'm going to use the skills that I've learned through the course to have a more positive interaction with this person. And this person could be, your mailman or your husband or whatever, anything in between. From acquaintances that you barely ever see and you smile a bit more than normal because, you're feeling better, that wears off, to people you see constantly, that you can be a little bit more generous with your time and everything else. So what are the main lessons that we could, from this course, that we could translate into having better communication in our relationships? Well, let's think back to chapter 1, learning and listening skills. This is arguably the most important. You've identified what kind of learner you are. Can you also identify what kind of learner, what kind of student these really important people in your life are? So, for example, do you have a partner that if you speak to them too much, there's too much conversation, there's too many ideas, we should do this, we should do that, but they kind of get a little bit like this? Maybe they're not auditory learners. Maybe you need to go, I got an idea, let me show you. And you get a piece of paper and you say, I want to move from Australia to Sri Lanka because it's more pretty and there's more flies and birds. Yes, I see. That's because they're not really listening if they're not auditory learners. So learn about the other people, not just yourself. What else? Listening skills. This is the number one thing that you could translate, hopefully, from this course, a conversation we've had, into the real world and into relationships. Listen better. Think back to and maybe review the lecture on this, but just to quickly talk about it now. Avoid stopping conversations and talking about yourself. Avoid me too, the one-upping when someone's telling you a cool story. I was in a plane and I was flying it, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I was in a jet fighter. No one cares. You're there to listen. When someone's talking, you're supposed to be listening. Avoiding giving unsolicited advice. Remember, it's not about not giving advice. It's about not giving advice when you weren't asked. If someone's not asking for advice, it's rude to give them advice. If someone's just talking to you, just expressing themselves, they want you to listen. And then what kind of questions do you ask? Do you ask, are you active listening? That's important. You're listening like this, not like this. And then when you ask a question, the question isn't like, who was there? Where was it? What time of day? It's rather, And how did that make you feel? And why did you do that? Why did that happen? Like, dig deeper. If you can get that in your normal relationships, your partner, your mailman, whatever, is going to be like, wow, this person really cares. And if they really care, if you really care, then your relationship's better, then they feel better. If they feel better, they might make someone else feel better. If someone else feels better, then the world's just got better. Then you've just done a chain reaction of positivity. That's like planting a tree. You plant a tree, all of a sudden there's fruit for the birds, and there's bugs, then the birds eat the bugs, then the bugs make the soil better, then the soil gets better, then something else is planted. Like there's small things you can do that can create these ripple effects throughout the whole world. Let's imagine. Okay, what else have we learned that's relevant? Think about, for example, our discussion on philosophy. Is it possible to be more in the present moment, to be more mindful, to be more calm and more relaxed, and this kind of thing in your day-to-day life, so that in your relationships that you give that kind of feeling, that sensation of like, this person's with me right now, that kind of thing. Even things like we've been talking about how to use the body, even just using the body better. And this might sound silly, but remember, if we use the body better, the anatomy better, we adjust our physiology, and then we can be, say, more relaxed, calmer, in a more positive mindset, then that is going to make you come across differently. Imagine just for a moment now, imagine we're friends, hopefully we are, and we just bumped into each other, you just saw me, and I was coming across like this. Hold on. Hey, no, good. I'm just working on the calls, and yeah. How does that make you feel? Like, what's the impression? Even if I said all the right things, I was attentively listening, asking good questions, you're still going to get this like, oof, I'm picking up on their energy and it's stressed, yeah? Contrast to this. Hey, how are you? It's good to see you. Calm, in control, nervous system, parasympathetic response, hormone level. But if you can improve those things, then you're going to improve your communication, your conversation. You improve your communication, improve your conversations, improve your relationship, you've just improved your life, and you've improved the life of the person who you are having the relationship with, the interaction with. Then they might then improve the lives of others. Can we quickly talk about something else though, which is inspiration? So there's this really funny thing that happens in the yoga world, in the yoga industry, in reference to, I've changed my life and now I'm going to inspire others to change theirs. Let's talk about this for a few minutes. How do you do that? Let's say you're doing this yoga stuff, you feel great, you feel really better than you did before, and you would like to inspire others to do similar things to what you've been doing because you think it's beneficial. So let's say you've gone vegan, you start doing yoga twice a day, you start wearing colourful t-shirts, you grow your hair long, you do all these, they're basically like cultural changes. You change your diet, you change your look, you change, sometimes even your social circle. And you think others should do it too. Now, it's not wrong to think others should do it too. But how do you inspire someone? Do you inspire them by showing them how much better you are, how good you are, in an explicit way? Now let's go back to our discussion on social media. On social media, there's a lot of showing off. Now there's less now. Coronavirus has changed social media for a lot of people, but there's still an element of showing off. Now, I've confronted some of, and I was like this in the past as well, I've confronted some of the particular yoga teachers who tend to do these kind of show-offy posts. Like, it's either look at how amazing my practice is, look at how amazing my life is, or look at how good looking I am. Or it even could be look where I am. I'm in this beautiful spot, whatever it is. And I asked them, like, why do you do this? Like, what is the benefit you feel to the people that follow you of posting this kind of stuff? And they say, well, it's inspiring. I used to be like this and now I'm like this, and I'm showing them how good my life is and how good my body is and how good my practice is, so that they know they can be like it. Well, the research actually shows that the most detrimental part of social media and this kind of interaction is the feeling that we get of not being good enough. And when we see that kind of stuff, although we're often impressed, like, wow, look at that guy's six-pack and he's on the beach in Thailand and he's doing a one-handed handstand and he's rich now and all this stuff, that doesn't make you feel good. you're impressed, but you're also a little bit depressed about the situation, because you always, we're social animals, remember, we compare and contrast. And we go, hold on, I'm not as good looking. I feel like this sometimes. I'm not as good looking. I'm not as successful. I'm not as cool. My beach isn't as sexy. Damn it. Ah, shit. So how do we inspire then? If that doesn't really inspire some people, but if that doesn't really inspire, as in the showing off doesn't inspire, how do we then demonstrate that we're feeling better? And I would argue it's from being a good person, from doing this, smiling more, from being relaxed, from dealing with situations well. And then from making those changes, then people become curious. So it's not like a slap in the face, look at all this stuff that I do and how it's changed my life. Rather, it's you're in the background doing your thing and people are going, whoa, that person seems a little bit different. I'll just share a quick example of this. When I started doing yoga and meditation, I have to be honest with you, I'm an aggressive person. I grew up with a very aggressive dad in a very stressful situation. And I got bullied a lot at school and this kind of stuff. And I defended myself through aggression. You know, I used to get picked on and beaten up and stuff at primary school. And the only way I stopped that happening was by going spaz. You know, I remember once a kid tore my glasses off, and excuse me for being too personal, but he tore my glasses off my face and called me a four-eyed fucker. And I just went bananas at him. And I was like 7 or something. I picked up tan bark and I threw it at his face and a shout and went like the Hulk. And it worked. For those situations it worked. And I kind of grew up with this, when something goes wrong, be aggressive and the problem goes away. That's the kind of the subconscious learning that I've unpacked a little bit as I've gotten older. It's not a very good way to be an adult. You get an email and you get angry if it's not what you want, whereas other people will have all sorts of emotions, and mine was just default bad equals angry. It's not a good way to be. Anyway, 2012 I started practicing yoga. 2013 I started regular meditation practice, and I mean, unbeknownst to me, I just start being less aggressive, and I start having a longer fuse. I'm not saying I'm perfect or I was perfect. I'm far from perfect. I have a lot to learn. I need more therapy, for God's sake. But my fuse got longer, my aggression became less, and it was noticed by other people, primarily my mum and my brother. And I remember them saying to me, I don't know exactly what them saying, but I remember them going, well, this is working. You know, what you're doing is working, and can I do some too? You know, so they kind of got into the changes that I've made, yoga, meditation, and changing my diet, because of just seeing me change. What's interesting about that though is when I first started these things, I was really trying to get everyone into it. Like, oh, Jared, you should do yoga. It's the best thing ever. I feel great. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you know, you're pushing and look how strong I am and watch my handstand. And it's like, yeah, cool, man. You know, that wasn't inspiring. That was annoying. That was my ego trying to kind of show off, and it didn't help. It didn't help convert anyone either. It was an evangelical, like yoga sharer. And it turns out again that just by being a better person and not trying to make everyone else do it, people got into it. You know, people said, what are you doing? I want to try that. So that's the argument that I would make, is if you want to influence people to try the stuff, the changes that you've made in your life, if you think that, you know, if you've changed your diet, if you've changed the way you use your body, the way you use your breath, the way you use your mind, your routines, anything like this, if you believe that that has a positive impact that would impact others positively as well, don't try and encourage people by A, being an evangelical person, or B, by showing off about how good and amazing you are. Rather, the best way to do it is just by being a good person and by letting that do the talking for you. So I hope out of this conversation there's some good ideas. Remember, if you can take all of this stuff, all the stuff you've learned from yoga, from meditation, from breath work, from whatever, from philosophy, from practice, from yada yada, and then you can apply that to your day-to-day life, to your relationships, to the way you sit. You know, if you're talking about just physical elements, to the way that you're sitting on a chair, to the way that you're standing in a queue. If you can use your body better, use your mind better, then you can make yoga something that you don't have to do anymore. And this is kind of the ultimate state, I believe, to get with your yoga practice. Make it something you no longer need. but you can do just for pleasure, for enjoyment, and to meditate, to experience yoga. It's a good place to be where you need yoga. Don't get me wrong. It's a good place to be where you feel like, oh no, I need to do my meditation. But it's an even better place when you can get to a point where your whole day is your yoga practice. Your whole day is your meditation. Every conversation you have is a positive experience. If you can get there, yoga becomes completely an option. And that's great. So thank you, and I'll see you in the last lecture.